Good morning. This is Tempo Africa TV, Beyond the Headlines program, and I'm your host, Petros Haile. On today's program, our guest is James Byron. He's a CARIFest program director and executive, and Christine Halstead.
Mm-hmm.
She is a staff volunteer, and she's also a secretary of the organization and potential board member,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. They're here to talk about CARIFest organization. CARIFest has a history of over 20 years, I guess 21 to be exact. And they've done a lot of activities in the Twin Cities, and it becomes more popular as the day goes by. And without me going into details, I will ask the people who engaged in this activity for the 20 plus years, and I'll start with James. Well, my first question would be, how did it start?
Well, first, Petrus, thanks for having us on the show, and we are very happy to be here. As you say, how CARIFest began. CARIFest began in 1994 as a grassroots organization as to share the Caribbean culture with the Upper Midwest. And it has grown from that small little egg and mushroom into what it is today.
From 1994?
From 1994.
Oh, okay. And every year you hold the festival in different places. I know last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct me on this one, you did it at the Knights of Columbus, would that say?
Yes. CARIFest, we have 2 days that we do, the Friday and the Saturday. The Friday is like an indoor activity, and last year it was at the Knights of Columbus. But the Saturday, being the main day for CARIFest, is always along the banks of the Mississippi River, and it's always the 4th weekend in July.
And it happens on the 4th weekend of July every year, or?
Yeah, every year, it's yearly. It's been yearly right now for like 21 years.
21 years,
Yes.
okay.
Same time, same place.
Same place.
Yeah.
And what are the activities you do? Parade, music, vendors, and what else is there?
But there is vendors which help us fund the festival, and then there is games throughout the day, an activity for the kids throughout the day, and in the evening we have a Caribbean style carnival parade that is taking down the banks of the Mississippi River. Very colorful. It's like carnival in any one of the islands. Music, come dance, shake your hip a little bit, you know.
Okay. Well, now I go back to the young blood, Christine. Christine, you recently joined the CARIFest organization,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe about 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your experience so far, and what have you seen? And I also want to tell the audience that she was born and raised here in Minnesota. And how did you end up connecting with your roots, so to speak?
So, CARIFest is kind of like my connection to the Caribbean islands. My parents immigrated here, of course, but like all immigrant parents, you still want your children to be connected. So they brought us to CARIFest to keep us connected. My uncle was involved. I participated in the parade. The last few years, as being part of the organizing structure and committee, it's been a learning process. You learn a lot about what it takes to make a day like that happen. You know, when you're on the participant side of it, you don't really realize how much work goes into it and how much time you have to commit to it. But it's been a learning process. You learn a lot about the organization. You learn a lot about your own culture and what it takes for someone of your own culture to put on an event.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn a lot about yourself, you know, what your strengths are and where you need to improve.
Okay. This is interesting because a lot of youngsters like you, who were born and raised in this country, would have difficulty connecting to their roots. Did you have any issues in this aspect?
Not, I wouldn't say I really had any issues or difficulty. Being that my parents immigrated, they were kind of disconnected from family. There was really only my uncle here. So as far as having people to connect with and absorb that culture a little bit, but again, having CareFest helped. So I guess the only difficulty was not having enough of it.
Okay.
But I think that my culture is wonderful, and it's a great thing to be a part of. So getting into it wasn't a problem.
Okay. Now, time to catch up. For you last time,
Right.
so to speak. This is great. And James, if I may come back to you, and what are the highlights of the CariFest for the last 20 years? Earlier, when we were talking in that room, you mentioned about participating on the Aquatennial, which is a yearly event in Minnesota, one of the biggest yearly event in Minnesota. And how was your experience in participating in that event?
Well, I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I was kind of like really appreciative of the crowd response. We know we had something special, but when we put our costumes and walked down the street, the response of the general public was outstanding. It's really surprised me a little bit how well it was received. They're telling us that we have something beautiful here, and sharing it wasn't at fault, and we should do more of it, as to expose the Upper Midwest to this thing that we have here, which is really great.
Oh, perfect. Okay. And it was held in Hennepin Avenue annually, right?
Yes, it was with the Aquatennial, which is put on by the Downtown Council, and it goes from Parade Park, Pavilion Park, all the way down to, I think it's like Third Avenue.
Third Avenue and
Yeah.
across the bridge. Okay. Okay, this is great. Back to Christine now. They had it for 20 years. And as a young person, you'll bring your experience as a young person to this organization. Is there a thing that you see that needs to change in the CariFest organization, since you're a part of it right now?
I would say that anything that needs to be changed is kind of in securing our structure so that we can keep moving forward. I think the festival is a great success, and it's a fun day, and people come out and have a ton of fun and learn a lot about their own culture or somebody else's culture. I think that we need to strengthen how we get to that day. So that means getting more people on board, getting our processes kind of set. There are processes in place that make Saturday happen, and obviously it does, but making sure that those are set down so that we can bring more people in and they can easily pick those up and keep going with it.
Okay, this could be to one of you. In many organizations, there's a sense of not belonging. The different organizations, they say, well, this does not represent me. This represents only a segment of the geographic population. So did you have to deal with that kind of difficulties in the past when you organize the CariFest?
No, well, you see, CariFest is based not singularly, but it's of a plural effect. It was meant to encompass all the islands of the Caribbean, and there are numerous islands. So we try to have a piece of every island represented at CariFest. That's the framework of it, and I think that has helped us not to segregate one island from the other, include everybody, well, it takes much ingredients to make a good bowl of soup. Okay. And that's how we base CariFest.
I think that goes back to getting more people on board. If you're feeling like your island or your Caribbean culture is not being represented, it may be because there's not someone from your culture involved. So that means that maybe you need to step up and get involved so that that can continue. It's never our goal to be exclusionary, but I know that some people do feel that way, and it's not possible for someone from one island to know about all the islands. So we got to get people from all the islands involved.
Go ahead,
To
I'm sorry.
emphasize what Christian just said there is that we need more people to come on board as to take this festival the distance that it could go. It's not a personal thing, it's a communal thing, and we need everybody involved.
I think, although in many cases the intention is on the right place, but it cannot be 100% complete because it cannot control people's perception.
Right.
You know, they may feel excluded, but it has nothing to do with the organization. You know, so those things happen. But if you pretty much feel 80-90% of satisfaction of the community, I would say go with it, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Well, you know, I always it puzzles me. Who constitute the Caribbean countries? What countries constitute the Caribbean countries? Are they, you know, mainly we hear Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, and St. Thomas, and all that stuff. But if you can enlighten us a little bit, one of you again.
Well, there's
I'll come to you.
yeah, there's a lot of islands in the Caribbean, islands that people tend not to realize that they're Caribbean islands. There's the other islands like, let's a simple island like St. Vincent and the Grenadines,
Okay.
which is right, it's an island of itself. People know Grenada because of that thing with Reagan and the army. But there's many other little islands that people don't know are Caribbean islands.
I think that it, like you said, it does depend on who you talk to, but any island or country that falls within the Caribbean Sea or borders it, I think qualifies as a Caribbean culture, as a Caribbean country, because they do share a similar culture. You'll find elements that are present on many islands in some variation. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, earlier we were discussing this issue a little bit, you know, such as Guyana, and they tend to be inland, right? Not inland, but right by the ocean.
They're by the ocean, they're part of a continent. You know, places like Honduras and Belize share elements, at least on the coast,
Yep.
and it's incorporated into the culture of the country itself. So I would consider it a Caribbean culture.
Caribbean culture, yeah. This is great, yeah. Would you say there's about 20-something? The last time I counted.
Major islands that, yes.
20 major countries, yeah.
And the other ones are small.
The other ones are smaller, or they're territories of other countries, but they are Caribbean islands.
Yeah, like the British, the French.
The British Virgin Islands. It's part of the British country, but it's a Caribbean culture. Their culture is much more Caribbean than it is British.
Okay. Now, tell me, what is the Caribbean culture? Is there such a thing as Caribbean culture? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I think it is. You know, like I said, when I got involved in this organization on the organizing side of it, you learn a lot. And one of the things that I've learned is your culture is determined by, you know, all the things that make up that culture. So that's language, that's food, that's music, that's dress, that's a way of interacting with each other. And I think that that's distinctive to the Caribbean as from other
Okay.
places and geographies.
Okay. You want to add a little bit to it, James, or?
Well, after Christine, there's not much that I could add.
Okay. Yeah, because, you know, I would not consider myself as an outsider. We have that global cultural connection.
Right.
Between Africa, here, and the islands. I call them the triangle culture.
Yeah, well, yes.
And that's possible too. You know, you can have more than one culture. just because you're Caribbean culture doesn't mean you can't also be Pan-African or American or, you know, culture is really just the makeup of things that you identify with.
That is very true, very true. In fact, I was browsing on the internet last time, seeing cultures from all over. You know, I realized the number of African communities in Latin America, South America. I'm talking about from Peru, you know, Guatemala. In fact, recently I found in India, across the street in India.
Yes, yeah.
And if you see the way they do things, from their dance, from their meal, from other experience, it's all connected. It's all connected. But to go back to the Cari Fest, when you do that, like, is there such a thing like Jamaican or Trinidad or the other Caribbean countries? Do they dance a little different? Is that what they're showing, or there's a Caribbean thing in general?
I think there is a general Caribbean thing, but it you know, because they are islands, when you separate, you take something that's similar and you separate it, you get a variation on it. So it does become Jamaican or Cuban. But then you look at it again and you see, oh, wait, it's different, but it's the same.
The same. This is as good. Yeah, and I guess that's what I noticed too. Certain movements are similar. You know, certain foods are similar, just like they call it soul food here, and pretty much similar, not necessarily exactly the same, but there's some different. Well, I'm learning.
Yes.
I'm learning. And Cari Fest, you have one coming in July, the last weekend of July. It's a 2 days activity, right?